Metalheads! Metal is the law in a partnership with Metal To Infinity Belgian web metal zine, and Jan Vervaeke, a YouTuber, has the honor to interview the mega talented Symphony X bassist Michael LePond.
Hello, thank you for the interview. Great to be here.
You're welcome. And Symphony X European tour is almost over. Could you give us a general view how the concerts were so far? What about the audience?
Well, the last time Symphony X was in Europe was in 2016. And that was the last time we played at all. So we were really excited to come back to Europe, you know. So far we've been here for 1 month, and the shows have been fantastic. The fans have been waiting for us, and all the shows have had a lot of energy, a lot of fire, and there's 1 more week to go, but actually we're sad to go because we're having such a great time.
That's amazing. And we know that you are not one of the founding members of the band, but could you explain the name of the band, the meaning, and who chose it?
Well, the band was founded by Michael Romeo, the guitar player, and from what he has said, Symphony X basically means the music is symphonic, but there's that X is that mysterious factor. You don't know what it's going to be. You know, it's that dark, mysterious variable that you can never tell what it is. So the name kind of works for us. You know, we're symphonic, but we have many different kinds of styles that we could throw at you.
So you were a Symphony X member since 1999 from BieBob. And at that time, after the release, that album was compared, or Symphony X was compared to Dream Theater. And this is Jan's question, and he says he has all albums, and it was a time that he became a fan of the band. So how did you feel about it?
Well, we get compared to Dream Theater all the time, and especially in the old days. I think a big reason for that was because there weren't really that many prog metal hard rock bands that you could go see. So naturally, people compared us to Dream Theater. Even though we both have progressive elements, I really don't think we sound like Dream Theater. I think we're a much heavier band than they are. I think they're more geared towards progressive rock. Progressive hard rock, I would say, and I think we're more progressive heavy metal. And we've done 2 tours with Dream Theater, so they're great guys. We get along with them real well, but I can understand the comparison.
Okay. Now back to Paradise Lost album. How the idea of having such a complex John Milton's masterpiece came up, and how difficult was the process of writing, recording the songs?
Right. Well, we had recorded the Odyssey album in 2002. So there was a long time between 2002 and the release of Paradise Lost in 2007. So obviously our musical style was going to change a little bit. We felt like we wanted to be heavier and less symphonic and less neoclassical. We wanted to be more guitar-oriented. So we wanted to come up with a concept that was really dark. So we came to the conclusion that we would try John Milton's Paradise Lost. And that's, I thought it was a really great idea. Of course, Michael Romeo came up with the idea, so it was perfect. And I think this album was the first album where Symphony X had a newer, heavier style. And the album did great for us. It brought us a lot of new fans, and we had some great tours. And ironically, that one of the tours was with Dream Theater when that album was out.
Okay, you have been at many side projects and bands. So which ones are the most important ones that people watching the interview and interested in Symphony X could you recommend about your project?
Right. Yeah, when I get asked about side projects, I always say that I think I've done more side projects than any bass player in heavy metal history. But you know what? It's really great to create music with other musicians. It's very good for my creativity. And, obviously another reason is in recent years with all the streaming going on, we lose a lot of sales. So we have to do other things. But, I like doing it. And, of course, the project that I hold dear to myself is my solo project, Mike LePond's Silent Assassins. And we have 2 albums out. But I do a lot of projects. I would say look out for a project in the next few months called Dead Risen. And that's going to be kind of a symphonic metal project with some really good players. And we hope to have that out in a few months, so maybe your listeners could look for that.
Yeah, please. So guys, I'm Lucy and we're here with the second part of our interview and with Mike LePond. And Mike, so were in other rock and metal bands before 1999, and which ones could we find something on YouTube?
Before 1999? That's a very good question.
Yeah.
Well, during the 1980s and the 1990s, I was a struggling musician in the New York, New Jersey area in the United States. I had a bunch of bands that I played with that were unsigned. None of them were signed, but I could give you some names. No, actually, I'm wrong. In 1986, I had a band called Heathen's Rage, and we released a record worldwide. It was only in vinyl, and it was only 3 songs. But then we got some sort of a cult status. So if you look hard, you could find some of our records. Then, in the 90s, I actually joined a hard rock kind of band, kind of like Skid Row kind of style. And they were called Rattlebone. Now, we were not signed, but we had a CD, and we used to play the local venues in New Jersey, and it was fun. It was cool to play hard rock and blues, because that's where my influences come from.
Okay, cool. And can we expect to see the Silent Assassins in a tour someday?
Oh, I would love to take the Silent Assassins on tour. I just have to get the right offer, because it's kind of hard, because we don't sell a lot of records, and we're probably not going to bring a lot of people to the shows, so it might be hard for a promoter to bring us here. But if we could get the right offer, I would love to bring the guys over here. We did do one show, and it was in my hometown in New Jersey, and it was a little bar that, we all love each other there. The bar is called Dingbats. It's a great place, and I think we had it kind of sold out, and it was a great night, and I would love to do some more shows with them. So let's hope.
Okay, now with this new generation, which new generation bands do you listen to? Do you recommend any of them?
Well, what I do is when I'm home, I'll be just killing time on Facebook, and someone will always say, "Hey, check out this band, check out this band," and I always try to listen when I can, So there's a lot of great heavy metal bands that I hear all the time. There's so many that just like too many to mention, but I do like a lot of the folk metal and the Viking metal because it has a lot of elements that I put into the Silent Assassins albums. You know, that folk Celtic kind of feel. So that's really cool. But it's great to see that Europe is so alive with heavy metal, because in the USA it's not like that. There's not much heavy metal in the USA. So cheers to Europe with my grape soda. Cheers. Okay, cheers. All right.
That's connect. Oh, sorry. That's what you told is connected to my next question, because do you believe the changes in the metal scene during the years, with this crescent quantity of metalcore bands being on the spotlight, for example, are positive or negative, and is it the death of what the people call true metal?
Good question. Fantastic question. When I was in high school, it was in the 1980s. And at that time, that was the glory years of heavy metal, of old school heavy metal. Heavy metal in the USA was so popular that the heavy metal bands used to compete with the dance artists, the pop bands, because it was so big. Now, metal, what happened was in the US, grunge music came in and destroyed heavy metal, destroyed the whole industry in the US. In Europe, it stayed strong and got stronger. And it's been really interesting to see how heavy metal has grown into so many different genres over the years. Now, a lot of that is awesome, and I love it. Now, the downside, I would say, because when we're talking about true metal, when I think of true metal, I think about a heavy guitar riff that makes you want to headbang, and a singer that can really sing, you know, his guts off, you know? And I think a lot of bands nowadays don't have enough guitar. I think the keyboards are too loud and they're drowning out the guitar. So you don't get that riff that makes you want to headbang. You get this keyboard thing and the guitar is in the back. So I think that's a shame, because I think heavy metal is meant to be with a guitar, and I think too many singers are not singing enough. They're focused too much on the screaming, and I don't feel, for me, that that's true heavy metal. And that's one of the biggest reasons I brought the Silent Assassins back, because I wanted the young heavy metal fans to feel the way I felt when I first listened to Metallica or Judas Priest or Iron Maiden, and that feeling you got. You know, you heard a riff and then you start going like this, and you know, and it was just the best feeling in the world. So, like I said, there's great things about the metal bands today, but I think there's some things that need some fixing.
Yeah.
Sorry for the long answer.
No problem at all. No problem at all. Now I have some questions related to your skills as a bass player.
Thank you.
So, why the bass guitar? I mean, almost everybody starts with electric guitars. And why was it your choice?
That's a very interesting answer I have for you. So when I was 13 years old, my father took me to see Kiss in New York City, right? So think about what your mind is like when you're 13. So I go to this Kiss concert, and there's bombs blowing up everywhere, and there's Gene Simmons. He's flying through the air, he's spitting blood, he's breathing fire. And I'm like, so this guy was like a superhero to me. He was like Batman or you know, or Spider-Man. And after that show, I wanted to be Gene Simmons. So my father, God rest his soul in heaven, he bought me a bass. And my first goal was to try to learn every Kiss song that was available at that time. So Gene Simmons got me into the bass, and then I just fell in love with the instrument.
Oh, cool. Love it then. Good. Now, what do you prefer? Fingers or pick?
Well, I prefer the fingers. I started that way with the fingers, you know. Now, and it's funny because Gene Simmons plays with a pick. So I think with the fingers, you get more of a human feel. It's not as perfect as a pick. It's a little sloppy. It's a little dirty. And I prefer that. I would rather have it a little nasty and sloppy, but feel like a human being. Now, I think there's some times where it's great to have a pick. When you have some of these power metal bands that play real fast double bass and you have to keep up with them, you know, you're going, it's great to have a pick, it's nice and even. But sometimes what I do is I use my nails and make believe it's a pick. I'll go like, you know, boop, 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 you know, and it'll kind of act like a pick. So, but I think you should learn with both.
Okay. Now 4 or 5 strings?
Okay, I've always played a 4-string, and I get this question a lot. They say, you know, Mike, why don't you play a 5-string or a 6-string bass player like all the other prog bass players? And you know what the answer is? I'm lazy. I'm too lazy to learn the other strings. I don't want to do it.
Thanks for your sincerity.
And I think, and also, you know, Michael Romeo plays a traditional 6-string guitar, so I don't have to go to the low 5-string, and I don't have to go to a real high string, you know. So if Michael Romeo used a 7-string guitar, I would have to change. But for now, I'm fine with 4 strings, and I could just be lazy.
Okay. So, which equipment have you chosen to be on stage during the Symphony X tour, and are you happy with the result?
Well, for this tour, what Symphony X does is we rent our amplifiers. So I rented, you know, one of the most popular bass amp there is, Ampeg. You always get a great sound out of Ampeg. And I have this little Tech 21 floor device, and it gives me some distortion. It gives me, you know, some little sounds to beef up the tone a little bit. So I don't use too many effects, just basic, you know. I don't want to go too crazy because then I think it becomes too fake sounding. I'd rather just keep it raw.
Yeah, cool. And which are your main influences as bass player?
Right. Well, we can talk about the bands and we could talk about the actual bass players. I always get yelled at when I say this, like who my favorite bass player is. But my favorite bass player was always Joey DeMeo from Manowar. Now, you know, sometimes I get some flack for this, but the reason I liked him is because he played the bass with such intensity, and he would use power chords like a guitar. And when I would hear it, I would be like, wow, this is really what heavy metal bass should sound like. So I learned a lot from him as far as power chords and playing 8-string bass and kind of rhythmic melodies that Manowar used to do. And I do the same with the Silent Assassins. I have these little bass melodies that are influenced by Joey DeMeo. I also love, every bass player will tell you this, and I agree, I love Steve Harris of Iron Maiden. He has the fastest 2-finger technique I've ever seen. It's unbelievable. I love Geezer Butler from Black Sabbath because he plays a heavy metal blues style. And for me, that guy is probably who I stole the most riffs from, Geezer. So he always will be a part. Two more real quick. Of course, Gene Simmons. That's the way I started. Gene Simmons taught me some basic, easy ways to walk the bass. Too many bass players today, they just play what the guitar player plays. That's not what being a bass player should be about. You should take a chord and outline the chord. You know what notes are in the chord, and you walk around the chord, and you make it rhythmic. And it'll make people want to dance. And of course, last but not least, Geddy Lee from Rush. So melodic, incredibly melodic. He taught me so many great bass ideas. And I guess, yeah, those are the guys. And as far as bands, some will repeat. For writing, Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Manowar, Kiss, AC/DC, Venom, Slayer, Metallica, Anthrax. There's so many. So I'll just stop there. But Merciful Fate. All right, we'll stop.
Okay. So if you could listen only 3 albums for the rest of your life, which would they be?
Woo. 3 albums for the rest of my life. Wow, that's tough. What would be 3 amazing albums that I just could not ever live without? All right, let me think about this. All right, I probably is going to say, I'll say Kiss Alive 2. I will say the first Manowar album, Battle Hymn. And maybe Screaming for Vengeance.
Cool. Okay.
If you gave me a 4th, I would say Killers from Iron Maiden.
Okay, so give him a 4.
Give me a 4, thanks. I can't do the 5th. This is too hard.
Yeah. So, and now to finish our interview, would you like to leave a message to your European fans?
Of course I would. Europe has always supported Symphony X since we began. We grew up in Europe. We've been touring Europe since the year 2000. And any country we've ever been to has supported us and gave us so much love. And 20 years later, since I've been in the band 20 years, every time we come back, we get tremendous respect. So Europe, we love you always. We thank you for all the support. And we will always come back as long as humanly possible.
When are you gonna
Cool.
go to Africa?
So,
We have been to Africa.
Where in Africa you been?
Tunisia.
Tunisia. Yeah?
Yeah, Tunisia. It was
Okay.
really cool.
Yeah?
Great. We
Why
played.
not West?
Do they have a lot of metal out in the West?
Of course, man.
Morocco? No.
No, I said West Africa. When I say, huh?
So give me a.
Example of West Africa. Yeah, it's like from my land, Gambia and Senegal and Sierra Leone, Nigeria.
I mean, if they
and
have metal
everything.
bands there, there's always a possibility we can go if they have
Yeah,
metal
yeah.
bands.
Look, I love the metal band, and this is why I'm here tonight to go over there and enjoy myself.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would love also African also they feel the taste of this because every music carry good message.
Certainly does.
Yeah.
Certainly does, man.
So I don't know if you will travel around Europe and never come to the Africa. So
I understand. I mean, we would play. Symphony X is willing to play anywhere, and you're right. Heavy metal has a great message. It's a positive message. It's a message of inclusion,
thank you. For
and
real, man.
and we're happy to bring heavy metal.
Bring it to Africa, man. Bring it to the West Africa, man.
Hell yeah! Hell yeah! Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Awesome. Thank you
Okay.
very much, man.
So, First, we would like to thank to this place here, Pizzeria Vosselaar here in Belgium. Yeah, because we are recording here. All the people here around, thanks, guys.
my friends.
And as well. And of course, Mike LePond, thanks a lot. It was amazing having you here.
My pleasure.
And
Thank you for having me.
yeah, no problem. And that's it. So, see you guys. Stay heavy.